My ex and I had been together for 2 years. It was rocky for the last couple months when she lost her job and just seemed to refuse to look for work, just living for free in my house, causing me to have to financially support us both. I also suspected she was cheating on me, and eventually I broke up with her and she left to live with her parents. A few weeks later she comes knocking on my door to let me know she's pregnant with my child. She was practically beaming with glee. I agreed to let her stay with me again, as my home would be a healthier place to stay, as her mom smokes like a chimney and refused to stop smoking inside when she found out her daughter was pregnant. Didn't want my child subjected to that. The one caveat to this arrangement being we would go in a couple weeks and get a paternity test done. She very happily agreed. Her reaction actually washed away some of the fears I had about her possibly cheating on me. So she lives with me for a couple weeks and we go to get the test done. We find out that the child isn't mine, and like a switch is flipped, I honestly no longer care about that kid anymore and tell her to pack up her crap and get out of my house. This was a week ago. She moved her stuff back to her parents' house but is staying with a friend to avoid the cigarette smoke and other problems there. She, her friends, and even a few of our mutual friends are texting and messaging me about how I'm a terrible person for doing this to that innocent child. That I have plenty of room in my home and I should just help her out. I feel like I've been through the emotional ringer these past months, and I've been through every emotion I am capable of feeling. From realizing I was possibly a father to the betrayal when her cheating was confirmed, honestly I feel so emotionally raw, and sometimes I agree with them. That maybe I should take her back and just care for the kid. Was I unfair to this unborn child? Am I a total piece of crap for not wanting them in my home in this vulnerable time for them? She cheated on me, but is this a situation that I should deal with and take care of them anyway? Not the idiot, 100%. If you let her take advantage of you, that's going to be your fault, and if you take care of both of them, there is a big chance they will hate you because you're not the real father of the family. Imagine a chicken placed in a family of geese. I would like to add, those friends are just not real. If the same situation happened to them, they will not be so inclined to bash you right now, and if they did take care of the child, it's their fault for doing so. That innocent child deserves to be with the real parents, and you deserve to be with your real children. If they don't get that, then find real new friends. If she legitimately had nobody to stay with, that might change things, but her friends clearly have the ability to take her in. So why should it be your responsibility? She cheated on you. Do not get roped into caring for this child. I'm not sure what exactly the legal situation is, but you don't want to get stuck with any kind of legal parental responsibility. It's not the kid's fault, but it's also not your responsibility. Not the idiot. You have no obligation to her or some guy's child. Her friends are either brain-dead idiot or are just taking her side to be supportive. Be clear that you won't deal with that kind of treatment and block anyone who has a problem with that. Getting back together just because she was pregnant is a terrible idea anyways. Having to take care of a baby causes more stress, not less, and if your relationship was already dysfunctional, you two would be awful parents together. Anyways, you may be wonderful independently, and that would be terrible for everyone involved. I'm a 32-year-old woman and I just bought my first house. It has 3 bedrooms, a yard, and is just what I need right now. I'm single and have 2 dogs. My sister is 34, has 3 children and lives in a 2-bedroom apartment. Lately, she's been talking about how such a tiny living space is not enough for the 4 of them. When she got to know about the house I had bought, she became very upset and told me I was being wasteful as I'm single and don't have kids and therefore don't need such a big space. I reminded her that what I do with my hard-earned money is none of her business. She went on to complain to our mother about how selfish I was being. Yesterday evening, I got a call from my mom telling me I should let my sister and her kids move into the house. My house. I told her that no one was going to live in the house that I paid for but me, and that extra space would be great for my dogs to play in. My mom also got very upset with me and told me I was being unreasonable. That my sister's kids are growing and need the space more than my dogs. I offered to help my sister out financially so she could rent a bigger place. My mom got my sister on the phone, who shot down the idea, telling me I needed to let her and her kids live in my house. When I refused again, she very generously suggested a compromise. I could live in the house with her and her kids and would not have to find somewhere else to live. She said this, as if she was doing me a favor. I told her she had lost her mind and hung up. Am I the idiot, or is she? I know my sister is struggling financially, but this kind of entitlement is ridiculous. Not the idiot, and don't offer to help her financially again. The longer you're helping her, the more irresponsible and resentful she'll become of you and your success. In turn, she'll just want more. As far as your mother goes, I think now's a good time for mom to get a few facts straight about what responsibility you have towards your sister, and for that matter, her. You help people because you want to, not because of some entitlement they think they're owed by blood. You're not the family fixer just because you have your life together. Don't ever feel bad for doing good for you. Do not let her move in even temporarily. I made the mistake of allowing my mom and little sister move in with me when I bought a large house, and it was one of the worst mistakes of my life. The stress they will put on you and the total disregard they will have for your house will cause nothing but issues. She made her life choices, you made yours, she cannot expect you to now pay for hers. You went above and beyond by offering her money to upgrade. She should not expect you to sacrifice your personal freedom so she can benefit. If she wanted to have a bigger house for her kids, she should have thought about that before crapping out the crotch goblins. I love kids. My partner and I want kids. I can't imagine being with someone who will be a better parent to my children. But we own a 2-bedroom condo. We need the spare bedroom as an office as we both work in finance and are working from home. We have no space to have a child, and we are intentionally putting it off until we put together the money for a bigger home. I'm in my early 30s. I got my first period when I was 9 years old, and they've always been gruesome. It cramping so bad that I had to miss school and couldn't eat or drink or do anything because the pain was so bad. In my mother's eyes, I was a faker, making things up for attention or to get out of tests. She refused to take me to see doctors or anything. I wasn't even allowed pain meds. Well, when I moved in with my then boyfriend at 27, he convinced me to go see a doctor because that wasn't healthy. And I did. I later got diagnosed with a rare reproductive issue, begged for privacy, that essentially could have been fixed if caught earlier. But it wasn't. The issue had gone on for long enough that the damage was pretty almost irreparable. In the end, I was basically given the choice of surgery A, which would leave me infertile, with less complications and a lower fatality rate, or surgery B, which would leave me fertile, but with a higher risk of complications and death due to the severity of my issue. I chose surgery A. I can no longer have biological children. My then boyfriend and I are now married, and we're looking into other options to have a child. We're heavily leaning towards adoption, and I confided in my mother about this. Big mistake. She started scolding me and basically told me that I had to have biological children. She told me if I didn't have bio kids then I was a failure of a woman and how dare you let bloodline die or something like that. She told me that if we adopted, then she would do everything in her power to make me and my husband look like terrible people so it fails. And, the icing on the cake, she told me that I should just reverse the surgery. I can't do that. It's physically impossible. It's not like getting my tubes tied. I literally no longer have a uterus or ovaries or any of it. There is no way to reverse the surgery. I went off on her. I explained that, and I explained that if she were a competent parent who actually did her job, then I wouldn't be infertile. I explained that if she had taken me to see doctors sooner, I wouldn't have to consider adoption. I called her a terrible mom and a terrible person, and I told her that if I ever do adopt a child, she would never get to meet them. She went silent and then hung up. Hasn't said a word to me since. But now every woman in my family is calling me a useless idiot and a horrible daughter. Even family I haven't seen since I was a baby. Now I'm wondering if I went too far or something. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Nothing you said was untrue or uncalled for. Your mother has mistreated you throughout your entire life, and it's only through the distance and support you've gained that you're still here, healthy and whole despite what your mother might have to say. DNA does not a family make. Your mother is so quick to spit on the bond between adopted children and their families, but she abused you, which is not in the spirit of family. Your relatives coming out of the woodwork for this smear campaign should be blocked without care. Honestly, I'd consider it a silver lining that your mother has pulled back. Don't give her the chance to impede your adoption journey. Maybe you could have stopped the tirade before. You will never get to see my future children if you wanted to keep her in your life, but everything you said to your mom was true and deserved. She is 100% responsible for the physical and emotional harm you suffered due to her medical neglect. Tell those family members what you told us, because I'm pretty sure they've heard a heavily selective version of events. Not the idiot, absolutely not. What your mother did is called medical neglect and a form of child abuse. What she's doing now is emotionally abusive. I'm glad you called her out on it, but if she continues this behavior, she's definitely not someone you'd want around your children, especially as a potential babysitting grandparent with her behavior and her attitude towards adopted children. I would definitely not include her in your adoption application. If you're concerned about her being approached anyway, indicate that you are estranged. Her view on adopted children is enough for agencies to feel the environment will be hostile and unsuitable for children. My son is 16. His girlfriend is too. They've been dating for about a year. When they started dating, it was normal and appropriate. Then, over the last several months, I've noticed strange behavior, especially around her. He's usually really talkative and emotive and energetic, but he's kind of withdrawn whenever she's around. She'd answer questions for him and finish his sentences, too. I didn't think much of it at first. But then I realized he wasn't spending time with his core group of friends anymore. Turns out it was because his girlfriend said he wasn't allowed to see them without her. He wasn't going out and doing things he used to enjoy. I asked him about it, and he said his girlfriend didn't think they were cool things to be doing. She sold his skateboard, she threw out all his drawings. We had a talk about not changing yourself to please others, and I thought she was an idiot, but it was all normal teenage coming of age stuff. Recently, I was on the road for work, and he had on a date with this girl, so I texted to ask how it went. He didn't reply. I followed up to be sure he made it home. He called and said he couldn't reply over text because she reads all his messages and asked me to not ever text him about her. I told him that was a red flag, but he said that when things are good with her, they're really good, so he's fine to put up with her when things are bad. I'm a single mom, so I thought maybe I was being too overprotective of the whole situation and I just needed to stop interfering. But on that same trip I called again to ask how a visit to his aunt had gone, and he said he didn't go because his girlfriend feels like he spends too much time with his family lately. I advised him that wasn't her decision to make, and if he felt like he spent too much with family, that was one thing, but he needed to learn to tell her no, and if she couldn't handle it, she didn't deserve him. He said he couldn't do that because he was afraid of what she would say, and she's unpredictable when she gets in a state. I was still at crossroads because I know he's at an age where he needs to problem solve for himself. But a male coworker couldn't help overhearing us talk, and he said, "Just consider, if you had a daughter instead, would you be letting a boyfriend treat her like that?" I hadn't thought of it like that. So when talking didn't work, I eventually banned them from being alone together and took her off his social media so she can no longer monitor it. A lot of men who I trust to give me single mom parenting advice are saying this was an idiot move because my son is not in any danger and needs to learn not to let girls push him around just to get his rocks off. But the parenting instinct in me said this was a double standard, placing him at risk. But maybe they're right and it's actually just the overprotectiveness, in which case I'm the one who's making things worse. I'm at a loss. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot, but this is a really tough situation. I had a classmate who was put in the same situation as your son. Girl monitoring his relationships, abusing him mentally and physically, then it got to the point where he couldn't leave her house. Except his parents took action too late. I guess he also always said that things were fine, and only when they didn't know when he disappeared for that reason did something click, and it ruined the beginning of his adult life. Luckily he is now putting himself back together. It would be worthwhile to properly sit down with him and a professional and set issues. So good on you for taking action. But make sure your son knows your reasons and understands them. Good for your co-worker who brought up the fact that, what if the roles were reversed and this was your daughter who was in this relationship? Don't listen to those other men. There are a lot of red flags, and you want to address this situation before your son gets into danger or more trouble and it becomes too late. If your son says that his girlfriend is unpredictable and gets into a state, who knows what she can or will do to him. I'm really sorry, I don't know what advice to give you, but please get involved. I was in an abusive relationship at 16. I'm 28, I have a job, kids and I'm happily married, and it still haunts me, I still have nightmares and panic attacks. He's talking to you, he's telling you what she's saying, and you know things she's done, he sees family too much, she reads his texts, gets rid of his belongings, cutting off from friends, he said she's unpredictable, and is afraid of her. All mine was behind closed doors and I never told anyone, I lied about it. I wish I hadn't, please don't ignore it. About 8 years ago I went to a friend's wedding. While I was there, I wound up having a drunken one-night stand with an old friend I went to school with. The next morning I woke up to her crying, she said she was in a serious relationship and our hookup was a big mistake. I instinctively apologized, but she insisted it was all her fault and I had no reason to apologize. I gave her my word that I will keep quiet about things and this would just be our secret. I've kept my word for years. I never said nothing to anyone, I've actually almost forgot about it myself. About a month ago, I was scrolling through Facebook when I seen something that shook my whole world up. I seen a picture of my daughter sitting on some random guy's lap. After a double take and a thorough inspection, I realized this was not my daughter. I realized that it was my old friend's husband and their daughter. The resemblance is uncanny, those girls are almost twins. The math adds up, and my thoughts have been driving me crazy for a month now. I want to say something, I feel like I need to know the truth. I need to put my mind to rest. I don't want to break a family, but after my mom passed away, I found out that me and my children are at high risk for colon cancer. If she is my child, I feel like this is something she needs to know. Everyone's the idiot. I'm just here to say that I think it's nuts that OP would be the idiot for asking for a DNA test for his possible child that this woman hid from him and never allowed in his life. You think that destroying the family would be an idiot thing to do? What about never telling a father that his kid even exists and lying by omission to your serious partner and allowing him to raise a kid that isn't his own without telling him? That being said, OP, if you want this kid in your life, ask for the test. If you did this, absolutely you are the idiot. Don't do it. You'd be destroying that child's world if their parents got divorced, not to mention how confusing it would be for her to have this random person show up expecting to be involved in her life. If you truly care about her, stay away. You are not this girl's father, you are the donor. The husband is her father, so what do you really expect to happen if you show up, expecting her to welcome you into her life? Everyone's the idiot here, except the kid and the dad. You wanting to insert yourself in their relationship because suddenly you want to be a part of some kid's life, that's horrible of you. You potentially hurting the kid by making her question the love of her parentism, that's horrible of you. You for sleeping with somebody else's long-term girl, that's horrible of you. You posting this right after Father's Day, that's horrible of you. The wife for cheating, that's horrible of her. I just can't help but dislike you immensely.